You're listening to Black Women's Health. I'm Dr. Rahman, and today we're talking about a health issue hiding in plain sight: synthetic braiding hair. Consumer Reports recently tested multiple brands and found something disturbing. Every single sample contained dangerous chemicals. I've worn synthetic braids, so have my daughters, so has my granddaughter. This isn't just a headline, it's personal. So I went to the source. In today's episode, you'll hear from Dr. James E. Rogers, the scientist who led the investigation, and we'll talk about what this means for you and what you can do right now.
I'm the Director of Food and Product Safety Testing and Research. I also have nutrition under my responsibility, and we are the primary group that tests for safety of products, of food, of water, and then nutrition recommendations on how to eat healthy. So we are totally independent. We are very objective in what we test. We have no biases. We have no preferences. In fact, as we get into the story, we'll talk about alternative artificial braiding hair products. We can't endorse anything. What we do is we present the testing data, we help interpret the data, but we want consumers to feel empowered with the information that we give them so then they can make wise choices that fit them, their lifestyle, their culture, etc. We just want to provide the best data we can so that they can make those choices.
Good. You've touched on our topic for today, and that's synthetic braids. How did that become a matter for you to investigate?
So we had discussions with Black women, Black mothers. We brought them into our laboratories to show them what we do. And then we sat them down and we asked them, what are you concerned about as a Black woman, as a Black mother?
Hmm,
Personal care products came out number one. Well, that's a big category. So
absolutely.
then we asked them within that category, what are you concerned about? Artificial braiding hair came to the top of the list. And they said artificial braiding hair was a big concern of theirs. There was a number of anecdotal conversations of, we put this product in our hair, we have outbreaks, we get rashes. There was a concern, and we talked about it in the article, of the smell, the odors that you get from this. I mean, in the
Yes.
article, we talked about how one woman put it in her hair and had to take it out immediately because of the odors that came off the hair. And so them telling us that this was number one uh, then evolved into a journalistic exercise. We wrote that article, but we didn't have testing data. And so I was asked last fall, is there any way that you could test this product so we can include testing data in the article? And so I went to my market analysts and I said, I want to test artificial braiding hair. I want it to be the top 10 selling products.
Mhm.
I want to limit it to the black and browns. We'll do the purples and the reds later. But I also want to ask the women that we spoke to the first time, what do you use? What do you use in your hair? What do you use in your children's hair? And we combined those two lists. And so when they identify those products for me, then what we do is we insist that whatever we test that we buy at retail. So we brought the products into our lab. We blinded it so the lab doesn't know what we were sending them. We pedigree it, which means we list everything that's on the packaging, the inserts, everything. And then we send it for testing. And I spoke to my chemists. I have two PhD level chemists on staff. And I said, what would you test as a chemist? What would you be concerned of? And there is a little bit of literature out there that volatile organic compounds is something to be concerned of, that it had been detected in these products before, but the product names were not mentioned. And they used a slightly different method that we were going to use. And we have a long history of testing for heavy metals. And so I said, well, let's test for lead, cadmium, arsenic in these products. And we've tested food and water for this, so we have a good lab that we can work with. And the other point I want to make is that what we tested for would be an issue, especially at the concentrations we found for a chronic exposure. So that's exposure over time. Some of the reactions I mentioned to you are more acute. So you put the hair in, and in a day or a week, then you're starting to get bumps, folliculitis, which is an inflammation of the hair follicles, rashes, etc. That's a pretty immediate or acute response. We're talking about chronic. Why we think that's important is you are, as a consumer, exposed to various chemicals in your environment, in what you eat, and what you breathe. And our concern is this is just yet another addition to the other load. So, for instance, if you're concerned about lead, you could also be concerned about lead in dark chocolate. We did a story about that. You could be concerned about lead in lead-based paint in your environment. And, some of our children are exposed to that because of where they grow up, the apartments they grow up, et cetera. And so we believe that this is yet another addition to that chemical load that your body faces throughout your lifetime. And we're trying to provide the information. So maybe you'll make a different choice when you have the information to remove one of the possible exposures in your life. So that's really why we chose what we chose. Well, we have said that there is no safe amount of lead in food and water. And I think it's difficult to say, number one, that this level is safe of any of these chemicals that we tested for, because some of them at high levels are, for instance, carcinogens.
Mhm.
Lead exposure causes problems with your immune system, with your reproductive system, hypertension. And in children, it affects them reduction in IQ points, neural development. And so I think it's kind of hard to say what that level is. Plus, how would you measure it anyway? I
Right,
mean, you and I
right,
are not going to constantly get blood draws to see where our lead level is. We're just not going to
right.
do that. So our philosophy is to reduce your exposures as much as possible in all areas of your life by being aware of what you could be exposed, depending on where you live, what you eat, and in this case, what you put on your skin by wearing these products. I've already described how we purchased the products. We blinded them, we pedigreed them, we shipped them to the lab, and we had them test for the three heavy metals I mentioned and for 65 volatile organic compounds. They analyzed for both of those types of chemicals, and then they reported out the data to us about what they found. We tested two samples of each brand. There were no lot codes because we typically test different lots and multiple products per lot, but did not see any lot codes on any of the products. In fact, the products have minimal information of ingredients. 9 out of the 10 products said they were made of chemnical. This is a synthetic fiber that has been chosen for these products because they have the characteristics of hair,
Mhm.
regular, normal hair. And number 10, we don't know what it's made of, but we think it's made of chemnical too. But there's no indication of dyes or any other chemicals that could be in there. And so we tested for the heavy metals. What we found there was cadmium was in 6 of the samples, but at low levels. There was no arsenic in any of the products, which was good. But 9 out of the 10 products did have concerning levels of lead.
Just not
One
good.
of the products did not have any detectable heavy metals that we tested for. That suggests to us, and we've said this in a number of different studies, if you can find a manufacturer that doesn't have concerning chemicals in their product, then that suggests that um, this area could be cleaner, could be better. For the volatile organic compounds, we could test for 65. We detected 18 different volatile organic compounds. Every sample had chemicals in them that have the potential to cause cancer. Every sample had a probable carcinogen called methylene chloride, which is a potential cancer causing agent. Three of the samples had benzene, which is a well-known cancer-causing agent. They were at low levels, and I'll get to that in a second.
Hmm.
But all the samples had acetone. Two of the samples had very, very high levels of acetone, and acetone is known to cause respiratory irritation. And so some of your listeners may know about or have experience where they're getting their nails done and they're in a nail salon and the acetone is so thick in these places. And so those were the basic findings. Now, we did find detectable levels of these chemicals. They weren't high, but again, we're looking at a chronic exposure, for instance, to benzene. And so we are concerned that these chemicals are there, and we, really want to work in the future to number one, test more, but also work with medical professionals with these levels, possible chronic exposures, working some type of risk profile. We hope they use our data and other data that's out there, and there are some testing that I know that's coming out soon, to really try to determine how risky these products are.
You mentioned that you're a dad and you have daughters that
Mhm,
wear braids.
mhm.
Were these findings surprising to you, and how did they make you feel as a father of two girls that wear braids?
That's interesting because part of me was surprised, but part of me was not, because I had that preliminary paper or two that I knew there was something there. But to actually test products that I knew my daughters could potentially use was disturbing. And so I think that by sharing these results with my daughter, one daughter's in med school. And so, I mean, I think she could really, really plug into some of the risk models and so on that we did. The other daughter reacted, well, Dad, now you're telling me it's something else I can't use or eat or buy or whatever. But she actually immediately, because she's preparing for the summer, started looking for some of these alternative products to use as she prepares to braid her hair for her summer vacations and so on and so forth. And we can talk about that also. So I was a little surprised, but not hugely surprised, just based on some of the preliminary research I did. Mhm.
You have to wonder as a parent, do you buy these for your children? Do you allow them to braid your hair? And in the short run, what would you say to parents who are struggling
Mhm.
with this information?
So we said in the article, don't panic first, because we're talking about a chronic exposure over time. We also gave some suggestion as to how you might want to, for instance, our information says women, children will wear this product 6 to 8 weeks. How about shorten that time, right? Shorten it in half. That halves your exposure, right? Consider extending the time between braiding events, right? And so let your hair rest, let your scalp rest, let your body rest from these exposures. Consider the alternative products, but we can't say whether they're safer yet because we haven't tested them. I would
Right.
love to test those that are labeled hypoallergenic or causing less allergic reactions, those that are labeled less toxic. There's some plant-based products, and that's one of the products my daughter tried to buy. And so we want to test them so we then can say, we've tested these. Here are our results and some possible products that you could use based on our testing results. And like I mentioned, there's some more testing that's going on that should be published soon, where that will even add even more information to help with selections. Um, my daughter tells me, even though we could advocate, we'll consider more natural styles, etc. She says, well, when I go natural, I use even more products in my hair.
Mm.
And am I being exposed to something else in there? And I had to say, I don't know that. I haven't tested it yet. Maybe a possible testing avenue for us in the future.
Don't we have a federal agency? I'm thinking of the FDA that monitors the safety of products that we use.
It is our belief that under the Food, Drug, and Cosmetics Act at the Food and Drug Administration, the FDA, that these products should be regulated by them. And when I say regulated, that they would monitor these products, that they themselves would test these products, that they would require the manufacturers, the majority of them that I've seen are overseas before they can export this product and bring it into the United States, that they prove that it's safe. Our initial contact with the FDA was to ask them, do you have any information? Are you concerned about this product? And we were initially told we don't regulate this product.
They don't
But
regulate the product?
they do not regulate this product. I think that, and this is a guess, this is speculation, that because it is on the hair or whatever, but it's not something you take into your body nominally, that they consider it not a cosmetic. It's like an application, like you're wearing a bracelet or a necklace. They don't regulate that either. So that's what we believe, or I believe, what where the response is coming from. And so, yes, we would love for a federal regulatory agency such as the FDA to regulate this product. In this present political situation, I'm skeptical that we're going to get attention on this product anytime soon. So it's going to rely probably on individual states. There are a number of states that have cosmetic safety bills out there. We're asking that they add artificial braiding hair to their bills. So it may be at the state level, and it may be looking at states like California, which, for instance, had supported our push to have red dye number 3 banned in foods and other food additives. We could get it done at the state level. We weren't able to get it done at the federal level. And it may rely on our own community, where we're going to advocate for ourselves. We're going to share this information for ourselves. We're going to advocate. We have a number of HBCUs with public health departments. We have a number of HBCUs with medical schools. So this may be something that we're going to have to work on ourselves, test ourselves, share the information ourselves until we can get the FDA to catch up with us and actually get engaged to help regulate this product. That's what I think is probably going to be happening, at least in the near term.
Well, that makes sense because we clearly have persons like yourself who have the expertise that can do the testing.
Mhm.
Why don't you think this administration, there will be anything done under the current administration?
Well, if you look at what's happening, it appears to me that they're cutting more than they're advocating for new things.
Right.
So we actually, in food safety, we're concerned that by them cutting back on inspectors and testers and laboratories and so on and so forth, that our food will end up less safe. It seems like there's a reductionist mindset. And so the concern is, do you even have anyone at the FDA in the proper offices that could even consider looking at this product? And so that's why I say we've already notified them of our results. We've asked them, do they regulate it? But while we wait on them, we're not going to stop. I have not seen another response now. You're going to stimulate me to go talk to my comms people to say, have we heard anything else yet? We just had a baby food story released, and we're waiting for a response on that one too, you know? And so again, we're putting out this work and we're doing this testing and asking for a response, and have not heard or seen anything yet. We do have a petition in the article. The article's at cr.org. It's free. It's in front of the paywall, and you can join our petition where we're asking the FDA to actually look into this product and regulate it. We're not the only ones looking at this, and we're not the first. It's just that we were able to leverage Consumer Reports almost 90 years of testing and reporting and using comms. We did a lot of work on social media and trying to get this information out and trying to get interest in this area. And I think we've done a pretty good job at that.
I agree. And were you able to contact any of the manufacturers of the products that you tested?
We always share individual testing data with the manufacturers and we ask them for comment. And so we reached out if we could find them, because again, a lot of these manufacturers are overseas and they may just have a distribution office here in the United States, but to actually talk to their scientists, et cetera. We reached out to all 10. In the article, we do mention that Magic Fingers and Sensational responded, and both in general terms said their product was safe. They may not have agreed with our testing method. We also share our method with the manufacturers too, so they know what we did and they could replicate our results if they wanted to. But they said their product was safe and that they urge women to keep on using the product. So,
Did they say safe based on what? Did they identify any type of testing that they had performed?
no, no. You'll see the statement that the exact statement that we got from them is in the article of how they responded.
That's terrible.
There are alternative products that are actually Black owned. And that's why I think our future testing of these alternative products is so important because I would love to be able to offer data and information, not recommendations, but to Black women to say, you might want to consider these other products. Now, I'm also worried again that if I test some and I find some, do I then hurt that company? But I do believe that Black women deserve all of the results, all of the information, all of the data to make their own choices because I want them to
Absolutely.
be empowered. I want them to feel engaged. I don't want them. Sometimes we just want someone to tell us, use this, not that. But I think this story is a little bit more nuanced than that. And so I want the community to know all the best information that I have and others have, so they can make informed uh, consent and decisions. And I don't want them to feel like they're being, you know, ignored or just, well, just take this, just use this one. I
Right.
don't want that. I want
Right.
them to know what we've seen, and there are Black medical folks involved in this too that can give advice. Again, so they're an empowered consumer making wise choices for themselves.
Sure.
Mhm.
You're right. It isn't as simple as saying stop wearing braids because that's
Yeah,
not a practical reality for
right.
many women.
We cannot make a suggestion. That's why we said in the article, take breaks or extend the time between braiding events. That's going to be a personal decision. That's going to be a decision that you have to make based on the information that you have and convenience for you, affordability. We do say in the article, if you are concerned of this story and how this may affect you, to consult with your doctor, consult with a dermatologist, probably a Black dermatologist who may be more aware of these issues, to see what they say and see what their opinions are, about how they may reduce their risks, mitigate their exposure, et cetera. So we do advocate that, yes, you do talk to your doctor and your dermatologist to see what their opinions might be.
That's great information, but that's limited because the
Mhm.
reality is that quite often the doctors don't have that type of information.
Mhm.
And
Well,
so,
consider that this issue, the paper that I saw was published in the 2000s. So it's not like we have been looking into this in depth and breadth for that long.
hmm,
And so I believe that in some aspects, this is early in the story. It's early in the journey. And we're just now becoming more and more aware based on more and more medical personnel and research personnel of what the issues may be. For instance, and we mentioned this in the story, the Black braiders in these braiding salons may be exposed to these chemicals even more because they're working with these products 14, 16, 18 hours a day. They're in enclosed spaces. To my knowledge, there's no regulations on ventilation of these facilities.
hmm,
There probably no training of these women to talk about exposures.
right.
as you probably know, when you have these braids, you have to close the ends. You boil them, you heat them in flame, you use a hot iron. That releases these volatile organic compounds into the air. And so they're exposed to this day in and day out for hours and hours. Have have not seen anyone else discuss that until now about what may happen. A lot of these women are from West Africa. They're Black women working in these salons. So yet another exposure scenario for our community. And the women sitting in the chair getting their braids done, multiple braiders, multiple chairs, multiple release of VOCs. I mean, potentially, that's an extreme exposure experience for consumers.
When you say you detected cancer producing agents,
Mhm.
what type of cancers are we talking about? And has anyone been able to document any type of increase in a particular type of cancer or medical problem that women might experience? I'm wondering, could it be
Mhm.
related to breast cancer or
Mhm.
something like fibroid tumors? Has there
Mhm.
been any type of association when you say cancer producing agents?
Mhm.
Then the question is, what cancers?
I have not seen the clinical information on specific cancers. All I have seen is of the chemicals that we tested for a ranking, and that's in the article too, of the potential to cause cancers. I believe I saw one for benzene causing lymphoma, I
Hmm.
believe.
Hmm.
But I would urge your listeners to take a look at what that could be, especially connected to benzene and methylene chloride. Again, this is a chronic problem which requires long-term studies. For instance, you would have to look at women if you
You would
surveyed
have to
them,
be
have
looking for it, right?
yes, yes, and
Right,
you'd have to find women that have worn braids for years and years and years and years.
right,
And you would have to see if there's an association, a statistical association between wearing braids for long term, whatever that term would be, and an increase of cancer in that pool of women. And can you associate that with the artificial braiding hair use in that pool of women compared to a pool of women that don't use artificial braiding hair, for instance?
right. And the other confounding factor is that these chemicals are not necessarily just limited to synthetic hair.
Exactly.
They can
Exactly.
be in other personal care products or
Yes.
and so then
It
it's
could be
hard
in
to
what
like
you eat. It could be in what you
right,
eat. It could be
absolutely.
in the air. Benzene, there was a report that I read, benzene can be released as you're filling up your gas tank because it could be a component of gasoline. And so, yeah, it's not easy to really give specifics right now on this. So that's why we say a blanket until we know more. Maybe you want to reduce your risk by doing these things. Again, we
Absolutely.
never said stop using it. We never said
Right.
you use it, it's going to kill you, your head's going to fall off or whatever. But what we said is that here are our concerns for your consideration.
Yeah.
And the other thing I wanted to mention too is that this is an international issue
Good point.
because I've spoken to women interviewers in South Africa, in Germany, the Netherlands, the UK, because number one, I don't have any information that says the products they ship here are any different than the products they ship there. The African diaspora is all over the world. And women wear these products in these other countries too. And so it's
Absolutely.
not just a local issue, it's not just a United States issue. I believe it's a worldwide issue. And there are concerns in these other countries about their Black women who use these products being exposed to the chemicals too. I
Lots of
know,
questions.
I know, I know.
We started off talking about how women were complaining about the smell.
Mhm,
A lot of times they had scalp irritation, and a lot of women have talked about there's certain things that you need to do
mhm,
to the braids prior to
mhm.
wearing them or using.
Right now it's anecdotal information. It's information based on the experience of the community. I have heard of the apple cider vinegar washed chemnical type of fibers. I think there's actually a company that sells pre-washed um, artificial braiding hair. There may be two. I've also heard of using witch hazel, and I've also heard there was a influencer I spoke to that actually washes it in the washing machine before she uses it. I don't know how she does it without making a big mess, tangled ball of hair fibers, but she says she washes it in the washing machine. Maybe she has a loom or something that she wraps it around and then throws in there. I don't know. I don't know. But what you're touching on is yet another area that I would love to test. I have talked about internally, let's do a citizen science project. Let's bring some Black mothers into the lab, into our lab in Yonkers, New York. Let's hand them some hair. Let's split it in half, have them wash one half of it the way they would in apple cider vinegar, however they would. Give it to them to wash it. Let's don't wash the other half, and then let's have both halves tested to see if washing in apple cider vinegar makes any difference. And so that's a project I have proposed. And my new fiscal year for testing starts June 1st. And so I will know by then what I'm able to do. I already know I'm going to test some of these alternative products. And
Great.
I have an internal list circulating mostly among the Black women in my organization. You know, if you come across anything that's labeled safer, non-toxic, whatever, put it on this list, and then we're going to start buying. Now, one of the problems is my daughter actually wanted to use one of the alternative products. They're sold out. And so I may have to do rolling testing, and that's basically you test it as you get it. And so if my shopper finds it, I'll say grab it. I'll, do what I need to
Yes.
do and ship it immediately, and maybe they'll test
Yes.
onesie two. We call it onesie twosies, um, to get this stuff tested, but it's sold out. And I think that our story kind of pushed the market that way. So yes, we are talking about rinsing the hair to see if it makes a difference. We also are talking about testing human hair. Now, human hair for braiding is more expensive. I think that it probably has its own issues because that hair still has to be washed, processed, dyed in some cases. And then I personally am concerned about, is it exploitive to the women that have to sell their hair to this industry? And if we then start pushing the market more toward human hair, then, even more women would want to sell their hair. And so I'm personally concerned about that, but that's not a science issue. And so if we test the alternative products, we test human hair, maybe we can get an answer of these, again, of helping women make healthier choices in choosing these products. One thing I did not mention is we have had some concern about the risk model that we propose. We fully acknowledge that probably for women that use this product, there's at least three different ways that they're going to be exposed to the chemicals. One is through their skin. The braids are on your skin, your neck, your scalp 24/7. And so if this product is releasing these chemicals just day to day, you're going to get a through the skin exposure. And we do know, for instance, lead can transition to skin, especially during heat or sweating, moisture, etc. So we do know there's a possibility of skin exposure to these chemicals. The other would be ingestion. And that's the model we chose when we talked about lead, because not only do we know little girls put the braids in their mouth, I know mine did, that this product is brittle. And we anticipate that pieces could shear off as, you're wearing them, they're rubbing against each other or whatever. Plus, in the scenario that we talked about with the braiding salons, that the women are there 14, 16, 18 hours a day. They're taking their meals, they're drinking their water, they may not be washing their hands, and they're using this product all the time manually. And so our model suggests that even a small amount of ingestion could give them significant amounts of lead exposure. And then there's the inhalation model. And we talked about that too. You're boiling these braids, this volatile organic compounds are coming off, and you're inhaling it. So our model only measured or suggested one exposure, but we fully acknowledge there may be other ways that women are being exposed to these chemicals that we should also look at too, as a possibility of answering the question, what is the total exposure of using these products as a braid wearer or as a worker with this product? What are you really, really being exposed to?
Right. And the other thing that comes to mind is because this is exposure over time,
Yes,
you worry about starting it on a young child
yes,
and then extending it over decades
yes.
and the results that that leads to. And so this is just a lot to take in.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yes. I
But
think
it
we could work on this for years if
for
we just got
years.
the resources and the
Yeah.
funding just to try
Yeah.
to figure out what's going on here.
Yeah.
But that keeps me busy, right? And it
Me
keeps
too.
other researchers busy that care about the issues and that want to help the community again with making healthier choices for them while acknowledging that this is a cultural thing, it's a style thing, it's a convenience thing,
Yes.
it's an affordability thing.
Yes.
Um,
Yes.
and so, just to reassure your listeners, we do have a number of Black people working on this. Um, and we're trying to provide the answers in a way that they can understand. We don't try to be lofty and scientific. We say, this is what we found, this is what we think we know, and what it means.
Dr. Rogers, I don't have any other questions for you. Is there anything that you would like to share with us or any other perspective that you want us to keep in mind? Any action that you recommend that we take?
Sign our petition, write your leadership, Congress, senators, if you think that they are open to conversations about this, and urge them to start regulating this product for the better health of Black women. Um, Also, be aware that artificial braiding hair is not the only source of this chemnical fiber. I've also proposed project number 3 to test wigs,
Uh,
clip-ons, braids, artificial eyelashes
mm,
to see if this chemnical fiber is in there and if there are chemicals being released by those products. Other than keep your eyes open,
keep your eyes
look to
open.
us to our continued testing of these products. Look to other people and other groups that are testing also, and just stay aware and share the information with your friends and family and other women that are
Absolutely.
using these products.
Absolutely.
Um, and so we still have more to do, and we still have more to test. And again, we'll report it in CR just like we reported this study, and you and I may be having another conversation.
I hope we do. I do want to thank you
Mhm.
for doing this study. If you've worn synthetic braids, as I have, if you're wearing them now, nor you braid your daughter's hair with them, just know that this is not about blaming you. It's not about blame. It's about being informed. We deserve to know what's going on to our heads. We deserve products that are safe and companies that are honest. Thank you for listening. Be sure to follow, share, and join the conversation. The more we know, the more we can protect ourselves and each other.